Welcome in. This is Dollars with Dennis. Glad to have you on the show once again. Ben George with Dennis Hoare as always. Dennis, good to see you.
Good to see you, Ben.
Got a good topic today, the 4% rule. I think a lot of people that have prepared for retirement have probably come across this rule, right? Because it's pretty well known. It's been around for about 30 years now. Do you hear a lot of people talk about the 4% rule when they come in to meet with you?
I don't hear them talking about it. They hear me talking about it for sure. My line is if you can invest money for 6 or 7% and only use 4%, you will always have more money. You always have a raise every year, but that's not always easy to do, and it doesn't always fit everybody's budget. So we got to figure that out.
Yes, that's what we're talking about today, the 4% rule. We're going to drop the article down in the show notes for you as well if you want to read through this for yourself, get a little more detail. But just to give you a little background on the 4% rule, it was developed about almost 30 years ago in the early 1990s. And we're going to talk about today now that it's shifted and they're making some changes to 4.7, kind of readjusting that number. What does that mean to you? Do you need to make adjustments within your income plan? We'll talk about that today. But Dennis, I think it's important just to begin with explaining exactly what that 4% rule means.
Yeah, so like in our last episode, it was simple and easy to do target date funds. 4% is a simple, easy rule to say that if you live on 4% of your investable assets, you'll never run out of money. That's a simple basis. Most people would need to get a little bit more sophisticated that. And if you've got a 4.7 rule, it means you might get a little bit of raise each year. And how does that work in for the long term? And that's so the 50-50 portfolio, Bill Williams talking about 50% stocks, 50% bonds over the long term should net you a better than 4% return. If you live on 4%, you won't run out of money. So he's adjusting that formula just a little bit to 55% stock, 45 with some other categories in there. So he's making some slight change there, but also saying that long-term result is 4.7. Withdrawal rate can be 4.7. And I think that might be a little bit of a recency bias because 10 years ago when the markets were flat, big firms were coming out and saying, we can't rely on the 4% rule. We need to do a little bit less than that, 3.5%. So there's flexibility in there. So we like to look at people's where they are, what their income would stand, but ultimately we want them to plan for the long term for both them and if they're married for their spouse, so that they don't run out of money before they run out of life, because that's not a good feeling for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that's the whole point of the conversation, right? It's not a one size fits all approach. That's why you do planning with someone like yourself. And the 4% rule has been around, as you mentioned, for a while and being adjusted. But I think it's even interesting if you go back, it was actually 4.15% was the original number he found, but they rounded it down to 4%, kind of made it a nice clean number. So, even then it's not exactly precise when you're looking at this. But as you get into this number a little bit more and these changes in this revision, why is it then that, this doesn't necessarily mean, okay, it's a green light to start spending more?
Yeah, so we have that happen with clients a little bit now. When you have a really good year in the market, they might want to take more money out, and sometimes that's appropriate, but typically the really good years help make up for the not so good years to do this. We want that long-term average. We want to plan on a 20 to 30 year period of time to make sure that we get the averages, because the 1 year basis is all over the place. You can't adjust to a 1 year basis. So just to take a pay raise, you want to revisit your plan to make sure that is in your budget to be able to take a pay raise for the long term. But certainly is appealing to see there. And it's a theoretical improvement. It's not a guarantee. So we want to make sure it's for your future, not for the article's sake.
All right, so you can check out the article again. We'll drop it in the show description for you to read through yourself. But I know with these changes, it gets people thinking about, hey, what does this mean to me? I'm sure the first question that comes to mind, Dennison, is, should I be adjusting my retirement income strategy right now? Is this a time now that I need to be rethinking what I'm doing?
I always get that question. That's one of the things. So our planning clients, we ask them to meet at least once a year to revisit the plan, because roadblocks along the way, things happen in life all the time. We want to know about them as soon as possible. We want to be able to adjust plans for that. So no different than your GPS. If you're going from here in Cincinnati to Florida and you're going through Atlanta and the road's blocked, your GPS will take you around it. We want to be able to do the same thing with your financial plan. be able to see what obstacles are in the way, longevity, health situations, and be able to plan as best for it as we can, and balance that out for your lifestyle. And revisiting it annually gives you that opportunity to do it rather than waiting till it's too late, for sure.
I'm sure that taking more money out is going to introduce a little bit more risk into the equation here. Do you ever have any pushback from anyone, Dennis, and maybe feels like, and you say, okay, hey, you'd probably be good pulling out 5% a year or whatever that number is for a client. They say, well, actually, it feels like it's a little too high. Can we actually scale that back a little bit?
Not very often, but usually when we say that, they'll come with, as long as it's okay with our budget and it works out, then okay, sure, we can do that, and pull out more money. It lets us do a few more things while we're young enough to enjoy them, that kind of stuff. So sometimes people are a little bit too conservative, and they don't even realize it. And that comes from probably the generation before the Great Depression generation, for sure. Just couldn't spend money, and once they got into a budget, it didn't matter how much money they got; they would not spend more money. So that's a coaching effort. That's a quality of life effort. And the long term, everybody has different health situations, long term, different family histories. We're not playing God, but we want to ask, we want to know what the family history is on both sides of the family. Are you typically living much later in life? Is it shorter? What are our goals in retirement? How do we get there? And do we need more money? Do we have pension plans? Do we have other things to fall back on? All those play a part on our withdrawal rate, and but ultimately it comes down to needs and available money, and then we can help determine what's a good withdrawal rate for people.
The other kind of question I think that this sparks too is people are probably wondering, like, does this mean that the 4% was wrong all along? Is this just something that I should have been listening to? But how would you answer that?
It's just a suggestion. It's not a rule. It's not a guarantee. It is a good game plan. It's a good guideline, but it's not very specific to anybody's individual needs. So if clients of mine will hear this, if we can invest money at 6% and take out 4% a year, you will always give yourself a 2% raise. You will never outlive your money. But that never works from year to year. If you have 20, 25 years, you can make that work pretty well. But on a 1 year basis, it does not. Matter of fact, we have stats on a 60-40, not a 55-45, 60-40 portfolio, 60% bonds, 40% stocks. In the 1 year, the range is from anywhere from down 37 to up 50%. When you take that out to just 3 years, there's no 1 year down period time, and you go to 5 and 20 years is the best. The worst 20 years, 60-40, is a 5% year average, and the best 15. So enough time, the 60-40 works, and we give those numbers, and then we try to get interaction from our clients. Do you want to take more? Do you clearly get a better return from good quality stocks than you do from bonds? But you need the bonds in there for balance. I said, do you want to take more risk, and is it worth it to you? Or sometimes you need to take more risk because you don't have enough money. So there's a lot of thought and planning goes into somebody's withdrawal rate. So 4% is a good place to start, but it's not always the right place.
And it's a great place to start, but it's just one of the factors that go into the retirement planning, right? I mean, what are some other things that are just as important as, or maybe even more important sometimes than what your withdrawal rate is?
Yeah. So timing. When are you going to retire? Is it next year? Is it 10 years from now? That kind of, and your longevity. So if you're going to retire next year and going to live 30 years, we talked before about the life expectancy going from 58 to 68 and now to 74 for men. So if you're going to retire at 55 and live to 74, that's a pretty long time to be retired. And many people have the opportunity and expectancy to live into their 90s. So if you work 30 years and live another 30 to 40 years, how do you save enough money to make it last that long? So those go into life expectancy, health considerations, taxes. Taxes are a huge part of that because that's something we can't control any of this, but taxes can change, our health can change, the inflation number. So we just came through the the big inflationary period that most people got very uncomfortable with, the 9% inflation and what it did to our economy for a couple of years. Seems like we've calmed down from there, but that has a big effect on your plan. And again, why you want to have a plan and visit it annually so you feel like it's on target. And that if you can take more money, if your advisor says you can pull more out, then take that with a grain of salt and double check, do you got everything covered? And if you do, then maybe you can take more and go with it. And if you need help with that, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Again, 401k.faith to get in touch and, kind of finish this out. I think the main question here, because 4%, 4.7, 3%, whatever that general guideline is that's out there, the main thing that you want to find out is what's your personal withdrawal rate. So how do you help someone find that? I know you've kind of touched on your process a little bit here, Dennis, but to answer that question, if somebody asks you that, how would you help them get to that answer?
We want to sit down and have a thorough conversation about their life, their goals, what they have and what they have need for, and then we can help push them into the right investment pattern, the right withdrawal rate, and make sure we're covering all the needs, because there's other needs other than just the income. Do we have the right insurance needs? Do we have the Medicare supplement policy, stuff like that, which we don't deal a lot with, but we certainly work around. So covering the insurance needs in retirement is important as well.
Well, rules of thumb, they're a great place to start a conversation, and they have a little bit of value, but they shouldn't not be the spot where you end the conversation, right? The real value is going to lie in the plan that adapts, and that's what Dennis and the team there at Faith 401k and Money Management can help you with. You can always get in touch, 401k.faith. Make sure that you're on track with your goals, what your needs are, what you hope to see in retirement, how you want to spend your time. That's all important. And the headlines are great, and you should be paying attention to them a little bit, but you don't put a whole lot of stock into that. So if you see this about 4.7% now, it's great, good to be aware of. But again, you want to find your own personal withdrawal rate. So hopefully this helps you understand how that happens and how you figure it out. But again, if you have more questions, please direct those to Dennis. As always, we appreciate your time, Dennis. Enjoy the breakdown today. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.